welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams, my partner in crime, Chris King. And it's a Thursday, so you know what that means. College basketball, NHL, the association, and Thursday night football. So jam-packed show.
Yeah, I don't know how excited anyone's going to be about Thursday night football when you look at that game. The two teams that gave the Lions a non-loss meeting in Minnesota tonight.
Right, exactly. I think it's a fair thing to say that it's a must-win game, but we will get to it. Got a lot of stuff, including Pete Medhurst, the voice of Navy Sports, who will be joining us along the way. So let's get down to it, Christopher. Let's head to the college hardwood and one of our favorites.
Well, first I want to say hopefully Pete can help me learn how to pronounce Coach Ken's name because I can't pronounce it.
Yeah.
But, I've got Grand Canyon on the road tonight. They're a 3.5-point underdog against an Arizona State team. And when you look at the numbers, it doesn't make a ton of sense. Grand Canyon's 8-1 on the this year. They've won 5 straight. The only game they lost was a 7-point home loss earlier this season to another one of our favorite mid-major teams, Wyoming, who didn't help us out last night. But everybody's due for an off night here and there.
Sure.
Meanwhile, Arizona State has been full of off nights. They're 3-6 this year. They just snapped a 5-game losing streak, edging Oregon 69-67 in overtime on the road. But let's face it, Arizona State's not that good. They're coming just last week. They had that 29-point debacle against Washington State, where that was their point total for the whole game. When you shoot 3 of 26 from 3, you're not going to beat very many teams. They're facing a Grand Canyon team that is 21st in the nation in scoring defense, giving up 58.4 points a game. They're 41st in field goal percentage defense and 43rd in three-point defense. Meanwhile, Arizona State averaging just 64.4 points a game, and they shoot 40.2% from the floor. Arizona State's going to have trouble keeping Grand Canyon off the glass. The Antelopes 7th in the nation in offensive rebounding percentage as they get second chances on 40.7% of their misses. Arizona State gives up offensive rebounds 30% of the time. Grand Canyon 7-0 against the spread in their last 7 as an underdog, 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with a winning percentage below 400. Arizona State just 1-8-1 in their last 10 after an ATS win, and 1-7 in their last 8 on Thursday. When Bobby Hurley left Buffalo to go to Tempe, this was not the kind of team he was expecting to have at this point in his career. 29 points. Don't get me wrong, Washington State has played well for Kyle Smith, but 29 points. How badly do you have to malfunction offensively to score less than 3/4 of a point per minute of game action?
You have to really play badly. And I think they proved it. But, I always have a special place in my heart for a team that's nicknamed the Antelopes. So, you got to love that.
With that commentary at the beginning about they had to really play badly, it reminds me of Bob Uecker in Major League when he's got Monty, the color man, and he goes,
Right.
Anything to add, Monty? He's like, no. He's not the best color man of baseball for nothing, folks.
That's true. Captain Obvious here. Anyway, so from Grand Canyon and the boys, we move off to...
We're going to move to the Steel City where the Colgate Raiders make the short trip from upstate New York as they travel down to face Pitt. Now, sure, Colgate's just 4-5 on the year, but if you look at Pitt, they're 2-6. That includes back-to-back 1-point losses. They lost at home to Minnesota in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Then they lost to Virginia in their ACC opener last week. Colgate's just 1-4 on the road, but it was a pretty big win when you get right down to it as they hung 100 points and a 15-point win at the Carrier Dome over Syracuse. And now Syracuse, we faded them against Villanova the other day, and that panned out. But the Orange, they had that big double overtime win over what was previously an unbeaten Indiana team who let me down last night, blowing a 22-point first-half lead to lose to the Badgers. But that's a different story. Meanwhile, Colgate's 6-1-1 in their last 8 on Thursday. They're 5-1 in their last 6 against teams with a winning percentage below 400. They're 4-1 in their last 5 on the road against teams with a losing home record. Pitt's just 2-5 in their last 7 at home. They're 1-4 in their last 5 against teams with a losing straight-up record. And if you look at those numbers, Colgate 67th in effective field goal percentage at 53.3%. They're 19th in shooting from beyond the arc at 39.3%. Meanwhile, Pitt 343rd in scoring offense at just over 60 points a game. They're 256th in shooting percentage. They're 300th in shooting from three-point range at under 30%. Jeff Capel, if the seat's not warm yet, it's going to be pretty soon. I know everybody loves these, former Duke coaches or Duke players, and we just talked about it with Bobby Hurley. Right. Capel has done next to nothing with Pitt. Some of that is, the fact that they've had off-court injuries or off-court issues or injuries. Right. Nike Sabandi tore his ACL before the season started. Ithiel Horton was suspended. But last year, Xavier Johnson transferred. Odyssey Tony left. What is going on with Pitt that nobody wants to play for them?
It's a shame. It is an absolute shame. The Golden Panthers having trouble on the hard court. All right, one more time. Let's go now to a Big Ten game, a big matchup with number 1 playing.
Yeah, it's out in the Garden State, out there in Piscataway, which, I'm sure Dick Vitale would love to be there.
Piscataway is Indian for out in the middle of nowhere, basically.
That works for me. Purdue, they're a 12.5-point favorite. I like them to cover that number against Rutgers tonight. Like you said, Purdue's number 1 in the country. They're 8-0. Rutgers 4-4 this year. They're second in the nation by scoring 90.5 points a game. They're third in field goal percentage at 53.1%. They're second in three-point shooting. Meanwhile, you're facing a Rutgers team that is just 288th in scoring offense at 64.6 points a game. They don't shoot the ball well at all. 331st in the nation at 39.4%. They're even worse, 334th in three-point shooting. Purdue 7-1-1 against the spread in their last 9 on the road. 6-1-1 against the spread in their last 8 on the road against teams with a winning home record. They're 5-1 in their last 6 overall. Rutgers is 1-6-1 against the spread in their last 8. They're 1-3-1 against the spread in their last 5 following an ATS loss. They're 1-3-1 in their last 5 at home. Geo Baker has missed the last 3 games. He's probably not going to take the floor again tonight. That puts way too much pressure on Ron Harper Jr. to try to carry that team. And against a Purdue team that is deep and they have a ton of size, led with Zach Edey at 7'4" in the paint, Harper could score 50 and Rutgers would still lose by double figures.
There you go. Folks, I know we're blowing through these things fast today, but we do have a guest coming up, and that's why we're moving quick. And so now we're moving on to the NHL. And Chris, you're going to take us through the NHL. Here we go.
Yep. Like I said, the NHL.
It says right there, NHL.
We've got an original 6 battle at the Bell Center tonight. It's the Blackhawks traveling to face the Canadiens. Chicago split their last 10 games coming to this one. Montreal just 2-7-1 in that span. Canadiens are 4-9-1 at home on the year. They blew a third-period lead the other night against Tampa Bay, giving up 2 goals in the final 3 minutes to turn a 2-1 lead into a 3-2 loss. Montreal 28th in goals against. They give up 3.56 goals a night. Chicago's won 8 of the last 10 meetings between these two teams. The Blackhawks 4-0 in their last 4 against teams with a losing record. They're 5-1 in their last 6 as a favorite on the road. And who knows how long that has to go back to find those 6 games. They're 9-2 in their last 11 after scoring 2 or less in their last game. Montreal 3-13 in their last 16 against Western Conference teams. 1-6 in their last 7 on one-day arrest. 0-6 in their last 6 against teams with a winning percentage below 400. And probably the most fitting stat there is, the Blackhawks have won the last 6 meetings between these teams, which is strange because Chicago really hasn't beaten that many teams in the last couple of years. But Montreal, Stanley Cup finalists last year, probably helped by the fact that, they got to play in the North Division. They've come back to earth this year. They're also going to be minus Jeff Petrie, Tyler Toffoli, Brendan Gallagher, and Josh Anderson for tonight's game. Carey Price hasn't played all year. You have to fade Montreal here.
No doubt about it. Le Roboton is not going to do well tonight. Here we go. On to the next one, Edmonton and Boston. Yeah,
Boston burned me last night because I bet against Bruce Boudreau again, and all of a sudden, he's been there, and they've only given up one goal in 2 games.
That's the problem. Spanky's on us.
Exactly. They're playing the second game of a back-to-back. Like I said, they lost 2-1 in a shootout last night to Vancouver. Edmonton has lost 3 in a row, but they're 9-3 at home this season. Boston has dropped 4 of their last 6. They're 1-5 in the second game of their last 6 back-to-backs. They're 0-6 in their last 6 as an underdog. They're 0-4 in their last 4 as a road underdog. Meanwhile, Edmonton 7-1 in their last 8 after being held to 2 goals or less. 6-1 when their opponent scores 2 or less. 6-1 in their last 7 against teams with a winning record, and 5-1 in their last 6 when their opponent allows 2 goals or less in their previous game. Boston is going to be a tired team. I don't know if they were trying to save up energy for this one that thought they could just beat Vancouver by showing up. They looked rather listless last night for long stretches of that game. And I get that you're trying to save a little bit of energy for an Oilers team that can score basically at will sometimes. But you have to show up every night, and the Bruins haven't done that lately, and I can't put a lot of faith in a team that scored once against a Vancouver team that has been, leaky defensively, to put it nicely.
To say, yeah, okay. Nashville and the Islanders up next.
Yeah, we're going to go back to the UBS Arena. Barry Trott's still looking for his first win there. They're 0-4-2 on the home ice this season, and that's not a typo. I put it in big letters for everybody at home. The Islanders have averaged 1 goal per game in those 6 home games this year. They snapped that 11-game losing skid by beating Ottawa 5-3 on the road Tuesday night. Meanwhile, Nashville has won 3 of 4 and 4 of their last 6 coming into this one. The Preds 4-1 in their last 5 against the Eastern Conference, 7-3 in their last 10 against the Metropolitan Division. Those are some ugly numbers down there below there. The Islanders 2-14 in their last 16 against teams with a winning record. They are 1-8 in their last 9 on Thursday. They've dropped their last 4 games against the Western Conference, and they've dropped their last 4 against an opponent that scored at least 5 goals in their previous contest. Nashville has taken the last 6 meetings between these teams, including the last 4 in Long Island. Barry, you got to win the other night over a tired Ottawa team. Now you have to face a rested Nashville team. You haven't won at home. I don't like your chances here either.
There you
Look
go.
for the Predators to find a way to prevail and come up with the victory, sending the Islanders to yet another home defeat at the UBS Arena.
Oops. Yeah. So.
Oops, he did it again.
Yeah, there you go. One more on the ice.
Yep. One more on the ice. We got the Ducks traveling to Columbus to face the Blue Jackets at the Nationwide Arena. The Ducks 3-0-2 in their last 5. They had shootout losses to Calgary and Washington in that stretch. Meanwhile, Columbus has lost 5 of 6, including a 5-4 loss to Toronto the other night, in a game that really wasn't that close. They were down 5-2 with under 4 minutes to play, scored once with under a second to go to make it a 1-goal game. Anaheim's won 4 of the last 5 meetings between these teams. Columbus just 19-41 in their last 60 against teams with a winning record. They're 2-5 in the 4th game of a 4-game and 6-night situation. They're 5-13 in their last 18 games after scoring 2, or when they're facing an opponent that scored 2 or less. The Ducks 13th in the league in goals against, Columbus 26th in that category. And John Gibson, he's had some decent success against the Blue Jackets in his career. This was pretty much a coin flip when you look at the lines, but I like the Ducks to go on the road and beat Columbus, who has had all kinds of struggles when it comes to keeping the puck out of their own net. Jonas Korpisalo still on injured reserve. They've had to call up Daniel Tarasov from the minors to back up Elvis Merzlikins. And when you're giving up 4 and 5 goals a night, you're not going to beat a whole lot of teams. Just ask the Flyers.
Okay, I'm going to call an audible here because I've got to get our buddy Pete Medhurst on the line with us. Tell you what, I know the NBA's coming up next.
Yep.
Do us a favor. I know you've got 3 of them up there.
Yep.
Pick your favorite of the 3 and give us that one.
Let's see.
Again, my apologies, folks. I'm calling an audible here. I'm Chris. It's unfair, but what can I say?
My favorite pick out of the NBA's tonight is the Jazz minus 3.5 over Philadelphia. Both teams are playing the second game of back-to-back. Utah beat Minnesota by 32 last night. Philadelphia had to go to overtime to get by Charlotte by 4. Utah's 8-3 on the road. They've won 5 in a row. They have the number 1 offensive rating in the league at 116.7. They're 5-1 in their last 6 on Thursday. Meanwhile, Philadelphia, they're just 1-6-1 in their last 8 at home against teams with a winning road record. They're 1-5 in their last 6 when their opponent gives up 100 points or more in their last game. They're 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 at home. They are 0-4 in their last 4 at home following a road trip that lasted at least 7 days. The 76ers, they've gotten Embiid and Tobias Harris and Matisse Thybulle and all those guys back, but they haven't really clicked yet. I mean, I thought they might bounce back after hanging 127 on Charlotte in an overtime win earlier this week. But they looked mediocre last night, and that doesn't bode well against a Utah team that can score seemingly at will a lot of the time. And Russell, we're glad you're enjoying the show. There's Jim; he's back now.
And now to the Thursday night football game, which is a good one between two teams that must win.
Got the Steelers and the Vikings, like we said. These are the two teams that gave Detroit a non-loss. Pittsburgh tied them a few weeks ago. Minnesota lost on the last play of the game last week to the Lions on the game's final play. Adam Thielen will not play for Minnesota tonight. Dalvin Cook is planning on playing as long as he doesn't have a pregame setback. He's going to try to come back and gut out that shoulder injury. Meanwhile, Joe Hayden, Robert Spillane, B.J. Finney, and Isaiah Buggs out for the Steelers. So it'll be another next man up thing for them. Look for Ahkello Witherspoon to step in for Hayden again. Minnesota 30th in the league in total defense at 382 yards per game. They're 25th in scoring defense. They're 29th against the run, so you have to think that this could be a big game for Najee Harris. Pittsburgh 4-1-1 in their last 6 on Thursday, 4-1 in their last 5 on the road against teams with a losing home record. Minnesota struggles as a favorite. They're 1-9 against the spread in their last 10 as a favorite, 0-6 in their last 6 as a home favorite, and 0-5 in their last 5 in December. Somehow they're still favored in this game, which is mind-boggling. One interesting thing to note, too, expected close game is 11 of Minnesota's 12 games this season have been decided by 8 points or less, including last week's disappointing showing against the Lions. Without Thielen, it's going to make a really tough. Kirk Cousins is going to have to look a lot at Justin Jefferson and hope that KJ Osborne can step up at the other receiver spot and that Cook can survive. Otherwise, it'll be Alexander Madison again at running back. But Minnesota has so many issues on both sides of the ball. You have to like the Steelers, even with their pop gun offense, to pull this one out. John, no, we didn't change the time. It'll normally be at 1:30. We had to move it up with Pete Medhurst coming on. We didn't want to hold him up on his way to East Rutherford for the Army-Navy game this weekend. Also, we'll be running a little earlier tomorrow because my co-host will be out for a medical procedure later in the afternoon. So once we figure out the time for that, I'll make sure I get it out to everyone so everyone knows.
Okay, everybody. It's time for our guest. It's Pete Medhurst. Pete is the voice of everything Navy, as well as his own show on 980, The Team here in the Washington, D.C. area. You can also hear it on Odyssey, which is where I listen to it. A great app. You should go and get it right now. He's also the voice of everything that goes on at Rosecroft Raceway and is part of the Nationals broadcast team. Other than that, he's got nothing else going on. Pete, it's great to have you with us, buddy. And meet Chris King. We got Chris King here, and we're talking. The name of the show is Just Parlays, and you know a little bit about that from your days at Rosecroft Raceway. Let's talk a little bit about your Navy team and the tradition. And you have a long tradition of working with doing Army-Navy games.
Yeah, I mean, another one of these coming up Saturday. And, you know, I mean, I think last year, and I just got done doing a media tour for USAA this morning. We were on a bunch of T stations across the country. And the one thing that, you know, everybody keeps asking about is the fact that last year this game was played at West Point in front of basically 9,000 people. And that was the Brigade of Midshipmen, the Corps of Cadets, 4,400 of each, and nobody else. The fact that there's going to be a full house at MetLife Stadium on Saturday, and these players are going to have that juice from that really didn't exist last year. They had to, BYOE, bring your own energy last year. And the fact that you're going to have a full house of almost 80,000 on Saturday for this game, I think it's great for the players. All of them went through a season last year virtually playing in front of no fans, empty stadiums, which has to be one of the most eerie things they've ever done in their lives for some of them. And I'm just glad people are going to be able to see it this week. And it's the 122nd edition between these two institutions who do so much, not only with football, but turning out future leaders of our country.
And not to mention, Pete, it's also going to be probably the best football that anybody's seen in the state of New Jersey this season.
I don't think there's any question about that based on the way the Jets and Giants have played. Multiple people at the stadium said as such today, as that's where we did it from. So without question, when you look in the top 10 of the NFL draft, you see Big Blue and you see 2 New York Jets picks. So that means they're not playing very well. Look, these two teams, the one thing I can guarantee you, they're going to bring it. They're going to play to their philosophy coming up. There's identity with both of these teams. This game is going to be physical as can possibly be. So you're going to get a dramatic, close football game coming up this weekend between these two sides. I can guarantee you that.
Pete, I've done a number of different games with the Big Ten and the SEC and the, ACC, Pac-12. But I keep telling people, if you ever get a chance to go to watch a game in Annapolis, that indeed is something special, no matter whether you're an Alabama person or an Ohio State person or a USC person. It's a different but very fascinating and fun time at your home stadium there in Annapolis.
Yeah, without question. I think both of these, institutions, Air Force included as well, they represent something different. They still represent what level of purity there is of college football, which there's not much of it left. But they represent it. So far this year, we played Cincinnati to their closest game this season. We're playing against, teams, and you look down their roster and the letters GR. Some cases, those are 5th and even 6th-year guys in some of their programs. At Navy, you get to year 4, it's time to graduate. You're not sticking around for an extra year or 2. So the Mids, Army, Air Force, they fight that issue. Navy, the purest of all, because Air Force had some what they called turnbacks last year. Guys didn't play. They re-enrolled in January, so they were able to come back and play this season. But the Navy has not approved that. I mean, players that have torn up a knee, that have applied for a 5th year of the academy and said, no, we need you in the fleet or the Marine Corps. So college football, the business of college football is not made for Army, Navy, and Air Force right now. Yet these 3 programs, go back and look at the last decade, they've had plenty of success on the field. It's a tremendous testament to Troy Calhoun at Air Force, Jeff Plunkett at Army, and Ken Niumatalolo at Navy.
There you go, Chris. Chris was wondering how to pronounce his name. I tried.
I always have a tough time with it. Obviously, you've had a lot of experience doing it for the last several years at least.
That's all right. Hey, when we played Steve Spurrier in South Carolina a few years ago, he just punted and called him Coach Ken. So,
yep, I remember that.
It's really not that hard when you really look at it.
When you break it down, yeah.
It's pronounced the way it's spelled. Niu Mata Lola. Just take your time and everything is fine.
And like you said, Navy's played some really tough games this year. They hung tough against Houston on the road as well. And there's also like you said, the game with Cincinnati. There was the SMU game right in a quick stretch there at the beginning of the season. How's that helped this team prepare for this game this week against Army?
Well, I don't think there's any question. I mean, look, we're the only team in the country that's played 11 bowl eligible teams. Temple was the only team on our schedule that is not bowl eligible. That's it. So you can't help but get better playing those teams. I mean, the games against Houston, SMU, Cincinnati, all in that stretch, just really forced you to be great, and we weren't. we turn the ball over in critical field position, giving the other teams easy opportunities to score. Yet we're still around in the fourth quarter with a chance to potentially tie the ball game and all of those stretches. You know, we lose to East Carolina a couple of weeks ago. Kid drills a 54-yard field goal. I mean, he crushed it. That thing would have been good from 60-plus. So that's kind of the game within the game we've played this year. You know, if any of those games turn out differently, if we could just get 2 of those games to flip, we're playing for bowl eligibility this week. And it's a completely different outlook on the overall scope of the season. But the great thing at Navy is, despite all the close calls, if you can find a way to win this game, then it cures some of the ills all of those young freshmen and sophomores we're relying on this team right now. It really gives them a boost of confidence as they head into the 2022 season if they can knock off their arch rivals coming up here on Saturday.
So this is like, if, as Marv Levy used to say in Buffalo, where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
No doubt about it. I mean, this is as spirited a rivalry as we get in college football. And when you look up on the marquee, if you can't get jacked up to play this game, then you probably need to move on to some another extracurricular activity if you're at Army or at Navy right now, that's for sure.
Now, how are they going to prepare for Jeff Monken's offense? Obviously, Army's thrown the ball a little more than we've seen in over the last couple decades, really, when you get right down to it, with Christian Anderson and company.
Yeah, their play-action passing game has been terrific so far this year. And really, in the past, it's because physically they just didn't have somebody that can do it. And now you've got a situation with Anderson. He's playing with so much confidence now that he's healthy. He missed some time with injury. And even when you are hurt, if you are not 100% healthy at the quarterback position, playing for either Army or Navy, you can't play that position because of what is asked of it. And Christian Anderson is playing at an incredibly high level since he came back from the injury. And, you know, in terms of preparation, I mean, look, we both run the same thing. So
right.
Our defense will be well prepared. They were well prepared last year. I mean, we get stopped at the 1 yard line. If we score, we probably win that game 7-3. So, you know, it's one of those situations where every mistake in this game is magnified because of how close the game is going to be. And that's what you have to guard against. You have to play with aggression. You have to play with instinct. But you've also got to play fundamentally sound and protect the football. And that's the one thing that has given us trouble all year. We turn the football over, and we've got to guard against that coming up here on Saturday.
Yeah, I know both teams are very good at when it comes to being on the defensive side of the ball, especially against the run. So obviously being able to break a big play here or there could definitely swing the pendulum one way or the other. Yeah,
and it usually does. I mean, a couple of years ago, obviously Keenan Reynolds finding, Jameer Tillman, finding Brandon Turner, two big pass plays within this rivalry that have swayed games. I mean, even though we won 14 in a row at one point, a lot of those games were fairly close, for the most part. And certainly since Jeff has taken over at Army, former Navy assistant, he knows the formula, and he figured it out. He went and got better players. I mean, they just didn't have good enough players. He knew where to find them. He went and got them, and they've won 4 of the last 5 in the rivalry. So Navy is now back on its heels a little bit, trying to figure out a way, hey, how can we knock off what's been a very physical, good Army team? But yet all these games have been close that Army has won. The one game Navy won in that stretch, Malcolm Perry was superhuman. He ran for 300 yards in that game. I don't believe there's a Malcolm Perry on the field for either team this week. So I think we're going to get one of those good old-fashioned sledgehammer. I mean, this thing could be like 6-3 or 7-6 at halftime. And Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson used to do, they're used to doing, Alabama and Georgia. They're sitting there going, man, we got a 7-6 game here at halftime. What do we do? But that's literally what it could be coming up this weekend, because I think both teams just break out the sledgehammers and go to town here on Saturday.
Now, who do you think is the key player to watch out for on both sides in this one offensively? Are you worried about Tyrell Robinson at all?
Sure, certainly. I mean, that's a guy that, he on one side, and Andre Carter defensively is a guy that can make a game-breaking play with a sack for Army. He's one of the best in the country at that statistically this year, and he's a guy that Navy is going to have to block. The one thing Navy has done, ironically enough, this year, they probably pass protected better than maybe they have in quite some time, because when Ty Levitai has been able to throw the ball, he's been able to throw it fairly effectively the last few ball games. Outside of the first half against Temple, he's tossed the ball around pretty good here of late. So his confidence is rising in that game. Clearly, he has to be a big player for us. Diego Fago on the defensive side is a guy that really has an opportunity to play in the National Football League. He's that good of a linebacker. But for us, in my mind, he is two players. We have a freshman at one safety. We have a sophomore at the other position who started the year on the scout team. And because of injury to people at that position, these two guys ascended to that spot. They've played there now for a few weeks. So they've gotten their feet wet. They've played back there together. But in terms of stopping potential explosive passing plays of the Black Knights, those safeties have to keep their eyes in the right place. If they do, and we got a chance to stop those big plays. If they don't, then we're going to be watching Army run down the field with big plays in this game, and that could, in tune, make the difference.
Hey, Pete, you feel like playing some parlays with us? We got we're going to call an audible here. Chris, could you pull up the big finale for us? We have
sure.
What we do here, Pete, is we give people the option of a bunch of different games and say you can play all of them, you can play one of them, you can play two of them. We're going to run through it and see what your thoughts are, because you, my friend, not only are brilliant at what you do as a broadcaster, you also understand the parlay business because of your Rosecroft situation. So here we go. Go ahead, Chris. Let them know what we got.
Like I said, this is the 10-team cluster that we throw in at the end. I like the Jazz and the 76ers to go over 217. Like I said, Utah leads the league in offensive rating this season at 116.7. They just hung 136 points on Minnesota last night, and we know Philadelphia can score. It's just a matter of whether they show up. I also like the Grizzlies. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Pete. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
As long as Joel Embiid is playing, I like the over 217 in that game. He's just playing ridiculous basketball right now for Philadelphia. That 43-15 game he had the other night was simply spectacular. And he is physically right. He might be the best player, not named Steph Curry and Kevin Durant in the NBA right now.
I would agree with that as well. I also like Memphis +4 over the Lakers. The Lakers, they're still everybody talks about, they beat Boston the other night, but they're still a dysfunctional team as far as I'm concerned, with LeBron and Westbrook and Davis sucking up all the oxygen in the city of angels. I mean, Memphis doesn't have Ja Morant, but even without him, we've seen them put up some big numbers. And I know they're coming off a loss to Dallas, but the Lakers don't seem to fare well as a favorite.
It's been something it's been a weird trend for the Lakers so far this year. However, if you look at this Memphis outfit, even when they have Ja, I can't figure them out from one night to the next. They're one of the most impossible teams to get a beat on in the NBA. Without Morant, I would lean Lakers to win that game by more than 4.
My only concern is the Lakers don't, other than, the fact that they have 3 guys trying to shoot the ball on every possession when there's only one ball to go around, is the Lakers don't play defense very well. That's my other concern with them is, they're 28th in the league in scoring defense, and they give up a lot of rebounds. I wonder if Frank Vogel's pulling his hair out yet.
I don't think there's any question. Everybody keeps waiting for the shoe to drop on Frank. And to me, that's the one thing that if you're Frank Vogel, are you coaching with, one eye looking over your shoulder, or are you using both eyes to coach your team right now? And I think that's a real issue with this Lakers club overall. You get some games where Russ and or LeBron try to do too much with the basketball, and that's what gets them in trouble. I just don't like Memphis without Moran. I just don't like them without their best player in a spotlight like this.
Hey, I'll tell you what, we're going to do one last one before we close because time is running against us, and that is the Thursday night football game, the Steelers and the Minnesota Vikings. There you go.
Yeah, I went with the Vikings or the Steelers +3 myself. I'm concerned about the fact that Adam Thielen's not going to play, so you're going to have to rely on, like I said, KJ Osborne to bail out Justin Jefferson, Tyler Conklin at the tight end position. Dalvin Cook is going to try to play, from what I understand, bearing a pregame setback. But, I mean, we just watched the Vikings give up 29 points to the Lions. I can only wonder that they're favored by mainly because of the fact that they're at home. But that benefits Pittsburgh, too. As far as I'm concerned, they don't have to deal with any weather.
The thing here about Minnesota, did the Detroit win last week pop the balloon for this team and playing for Mike Zimmer? Because losing a game like that can be catastrophic in so many ways. There's no question Minnesota's still with Jefferson, with Cook, even at about 75 or 80%, still present a real formidable foe for Pittsburgh's defense. But I watched what Pittsburgh did against Baltimore last week. They are still very much in tune for Mike Tomlin and on top of their game. And I just wonder where this Minnesota team is after getting beaten by Detroit. Anytime you can get the Steelers with points, still to me is an appetizing opportunity. And look, I think this is a close, lower scoring game. And whenever it's a lower scoring game, you give the road team a chance to cover here in this situation. So I do like the Steelers a smidge better than the Vikings, just because I know and feel stronger about what Pittsburgh's going to be like coming into this game than I do Minnesota, whose balloon may have popped last week, getting beat by Detroit.
And one big concern, and I think this is what I think about that too, is Minnesota, they're terrible defensively. They give up more than 25 points a game, 382 yards per game, and they're 28th or 29th against the run. This could be a big day for Najee Harris, who, the Steelers don't run for a ton of yardage, but you're facing a team that can't stop the run.
Right. And I mean, look, Pittsburgh's offensive line against better defenses is going to struggle. And we've seen that at times this year. But Minnesota's a team right now that defense over the last 2.5 years has been a group that has not provided a ton of resistance against the opposition. And the one thing Pittsburgh is going to try and do tonight is be physical and come to the line of scrimmage and knock you out. And because of that, I think you have to give the edge here to Pittsburgh. I think Najee Harris is probably plus 20 carries in this game. Certainly would be good for an anytime touchdown in this game. So just as much as we're talking about how good we think Pittsburgh is, watch Minnesota decide they still want to play and blow them out or something tonight. But I just don't know how you can bank with any certainty on this Minnesota team after what happened last week.
Yeah, I mean, 11 of their 12 games have been decided by one score or less. So, I mean, they're always in close games, like you said. And I have to wonder, can their line hold up against T.J. Watt, who we just saw wrecked Lamar Jackson last week?
No doubt. But Kirk Cousins is not going to run around like Lamar Jackson can. That's for sure.
That's true.
Okay, Pete, we've come to the point of the show for shameless plugs. Please tell everybody where they can listen to you, find you on social media, and all that good stuff.
Certainly on the Team 980 each and every day, 3 to 7 with Chris Russell. You can find it very easily on the Odyssey app. Just click Team 980. It is a burgundy and gold emblem. You'll be able to find it on Twitter at Pete Medhurst. We keep it pretty simple, and we're not a Twitter snob. We're more than happy to interact with folks on Twitter each and every day.
And we can listen to you call the game, Army Navy. Is it on the Audacity app, or where can we hear that game?
You'll be able to find it this week on the WBAL Navy Radio Network, on the internet at WBAL.com, and on the radio in the D.C. area on 1090 a.m. and 1500 a.m. as well.
Pete, thanks very much. Enjoy the trip, and it was great having you as a guest.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, Pete.
Yeah. No problem, Jim. Chris, appreciate you having me. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Drive safely.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care. That was Pete Medhurst who joined us. And ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much what we got for the day. That was our first guest. We'll have more. And he brought some very good knowledge to us.
As for John, my best bet of the day, I think you've got to think that Purdue giving 12.5 on the road against Rutgers is a pretty solid lock. Like I said at the beginning of the show, Purdue second in the nation in scoring offense. They're third in field goal percentage. They're second in 3-point shooting. They're facing a Rutgers team that's only at 500 on the year. They're minus Geo Baker. They're averaging only 64.6 points a game themselves. I have to think that Purdue is going to win that one pretty convincingly. That Rutgers doesn't have anybody that can match up with Zach Edey. There's probably about 320 teams, if not more, in Division I that don't have a guy that can match up with him in the low block at 7'4". There you go. Nathan just said the line's already gone up to 13. It probably will go higher than that. So if you're going to jump on that one, I would jump on it sooner rather than later. But either way, Purdue should take this one probably in the 15 to 20 point range, I would think, comfortably, even going to Piscataway, which, as Jim told you earlier, is supposedly Indian for where God lost his sneakers. Ron Harper Jr. can't carry that team by himself.
No. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us today. We've had a lot of fun. Be sure to check us out. Tomorrow we're going to be coming to you. Keep a lookout. I think, what is it, going to be 10 or 11, Chris? It's up to you, my friend. You tell us.
Yeah, I think 11 will probably work.
All right, 11 a.m. tomorrow. So we'll be with you tomorrow, 11 a.m. And again, special thanks to Pete Medhurst for joining us from the Navy broadcast.
Now, are we still expecting Jack tomorrow?
We'll see.
Okay.
If we don't get Jack, we'll get him on Monday, okay? This bowl time is kind of crazy for Jack. But anyway, special thanks to everybody for joining us. We had a lot of fun. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and, of course, here on YouTube TV. If you missed it, you can always get us on demand. Okay, cool.
And if you want to reach me, you can always reach me. There's my Twitter handle right there. Feel free to shoot me a message. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Okay, guys, have a wonderful day. And coming up next at 3:00 is Back to the Window with Steve and with the boys. Okay, take care, everybody. Take care. Bye.